She was travelling alone, late in the evening, the carriage almost empty, the reflection of the interior in the darkened window opposite her. For a moment, she caught sight of someone sitting next to her, a pale face in the glass. She turned to look, but the seat was empty. And when she looked back at the window, the reflection was gone. On our last journey beneath London, we followed the underground through places shaped by execution, burial, and memory. We travelled down through layers of wartime fear, of murder, and of disaster. But not all parts of this city carry the past in the same way. Because there are places where history was not allowed to settle quietly, but was buried in haste, hidden from view, or forgotten altogether. Like plague victims, the mentally ill, and those society once chose to overlook. Today, we return to the London Underground, not to retrace our steps, but to follow its lines into darker spaces. From Aldgate to Elephant and Castle Station, from Kennington to the Crossbones burial ground, this is a journey through the places where London's forgotten dead still linger. Our journey begins at Aldgate, on the eastern edge of the city. Railway staff here have long reported strange occurrences after hours. They hear the sound of footsteps in empty spaces and a low, mournful whistling carried through the tunnels when no trains are running. In his 1975 book Ghosts of London, Jack Hallam's very first entry is about Aldgate, and he describes a logbook kept here to record encounters with the station's ghost. Today, trains arrive and depart beneath fluorescent light, and commuters pass through without a second thought. But beneath the platforms lies ground that was once given over to the dead, and not always with ceremony or care. Aldgate itself takes its name from one of the original gates of Roman Londinium. And before the station opened in November 1876, its construction was delayed by what Railway News described as serious obstacles, raising doubts that the short extension from Bishopsgate would ever be completed. Some of those obstacles were human remains. Over 200 years before the Metropolitan Railway reached Aldgate, London found itself in the grip of the Great Plague. This outbreak of disease killed an estimated 100,000 people. We can only estimate the true figure because, although parish clerks kept weekly records of deaths, known as bills of mortality, there was no obligation to report a death to any central authority. And with any house where someone had died of plague subject to 40 days of quarantine, marked with a cross and the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us," there was every incentive to conceal plague deaths. Whether recorded or not, though, people died in vast numbers and had to be buried. There could be no niceties, no processions or ceremonies, often not even coffins. And one of the largest plague pits in London lay at St Botolph's without Aldgate, the church that still stands beside the station today. In A Journal of the Plague Year, Daniel Defoe describes a great pit here into which 1,114 bodies were thrown in just 2 weeks. The mark of it, he wrote, was many years to be seen in the churchyard on the surface. And perhaps not everything here has remained entirely below the ground. In the early 1970s, an engineer reported seeing the half-transparent figure of an elderly woman bend forward and gently stroke the hair of a colleague working beside him on high-voltage equipment. Seconds later, that colleague received a 20,000-volt shock. It knocked him unconscious, but somehow he survived. One explanation suggests the woman herself died here when she fell onto a conductor rail. Could it be that she now tries to protect others from a similar fate? Whether her presence is real, imagined, or something in between, Aldgate leaves us with a question, not just of what remains, but of who. From Aldgate, the line carries us north to Liverpool Street, and to a site where more of the past has been discovered, or, some might say, disturbed. Liverpool Street opened as Bishopsgate Station in 1874, a dual-level construction serving both mainline and underground trains. The Metropolitan Railway opened their tube station here in 1875, renaming it Liverpool Street in 1909. Today, it is one of the busiest stations on the network. And it seems that activity here does not always end when the passengers have gone. In 2000, a station supervisor was conducting a routine check of an empty platform. Watching from the control room, his colleague noticed something. Standing close beside him was another figure, dressed in white overalls. The controller could see this second man clearly on the CCTV screen, positioned almost shoulder to shoulder with the supervisor. And yet, when asked, the supervisor insisted he was alone. The platform was searched again and again, but they found nothing. Nothing, that is, except for a set of white overalls folded neatly on a nearby bench. Who this figure might have been is unclear. The clothing suggests a railway worker, and it's difficult to explain away what was so clearly seen or the physical item found on the platform. But it could have been the manifestation of something altogether older, because the ground beneath Liverpool Street holds more than railway infrastructure. From 1247 to 1676, this was the site of the first Bethlehem hospital, later known as Bedlam. What began as a general hospital gradually became an institution for the confinement of the mentally ill. By the 15th century, the place was known less for treatment and more for containment. Despite being enlarged over the years, the building became too old, weak, and ruinous for the governors. In 1676, a new Bethlehem hospital opened in nearby Moorfields. In both locations, shamefully, visitors were admitted to observe the inmates for entertainment. One story connected to this site is that of Rebecca Griffiths, a patient said to have suffered from raving madness. During her time in Bedlam, she clutched a gold coin constantly, refusing to be parted from it. Rebecca wanted to be buried with this coin, but a worker at the hospital stole it from her on her deathbed. Her frustrated screams as she searches for her property still echo through the station and tunnels at Liverpool Street. And where were the inmates of Bedlam buried when they died? Well, between 2011 and 2016, during construction work for the Elizabeth line, approximately 3,500 graves were excavated at Liverpool Street. Known as the Bedlam Burial Ground, it had been in use from 1569 to at least 1738, and it includes victims of the Black Death. This ground holds those who lived and died on the margins. The poor, The sick, the institutionalised, those who, in life, had little control over their circumstances and in death were afforded little ceremony. It's not surprising that such a concentration of history, of disrupted remains and quiet tragedies, might leave its mark. When staff hear cries in the empty station, when they walk through cold spots and sense something shift in the stillness, they are responding to a place built not just over the past, but through it. At Liverpool Street, the confined were forgotten and later unearthed. South of the river, they were never meant to be remembered at all. Beyond the city, across the Thames, the line passes through Borough and into Southwark, where a narrow stretch of ground lies hidden on Red Cross Way. Immediately beside a Jubilee Line substation is the Crossbones graveyard and Garden of Remembrance. It doesn't resemble a traditional graveyard. There are no rows of headstones and no ordered markers. Instead, it's a small, enclosed space set back from the street. From at least the 16th century, Crossbones served as a burial ground for the poor of the parish of St Saviour's. Among them were women described in historical records as single women, a term often used for those working in the brothels or stews that once lined this part of Southwark. Licensed by the Bishop of Winchester within Southwark's Liberty of the Clink, they were the Winchester geese. In life, they existed on the margins of the city, and in death, they were buried here in unconsecrated ground, alongside the destitute and the sick. Over time, the ground became overcrowded. Even though bodies were regularly taken by grave robbers for dissection at nearby Guy's Hospital, layers of burial built upon one another until the site itself became a threat to public health. In 1853, Crossbones closed, described as completely overcharged with dead. When work started here in the 1990s during the Jubilee Line extension project, archaeologists opened a small section of this ground. 148 skeletons were removed from this single area. 98 of them were children under the age of 5. It's estimated that the graveyard holds the remains of 15,000 people, and analysis of the bones has revealed disease, malnutrition, and physical hardship. One skeleton, now represented in the garden by a sculpted cast, belonged to a young woman no older than 19. She stood little over 4 feet tall, and her bones bore the marks of advanced disease, her skull showing the damage caused by untreated illness. Today, Crossbones sits in the shadow of modern London, with glass and steel rising above ground that holds those who had neither wealth nor status. Visitors leave ribbons and messages tied to the gates in small acts of recognition for lives once overlooked. Stories of the supernatural here are relatively restrained. There are reports of figures seen in the Jubilee Line tunnels, described as monks moving silently along the tracks. But are these figures, cloaked and hooded, the spirits of religious brothers? Could they, instead, be the echoes of more ordinary people? Because the presence of Crossbones is felt in the ground here. And hard lives that ended in such careless disposal, denied and unacknowledged, may well struggle to find peace. Crossbones Graveyard is now cared for. It's a space open to visitors and full of history and folklore. But there are other stations, other tunnels, where no burial ground is marked, no records remain, and yet something is still experienced. If we travel southwest from here to Elephant and Castle, we find one of those places. Opened on the Northern Line by the City and South London Railway in 1890, the Bakerloo line station opened in 1906. Several writers, including Peter Underwood and W.B. Herbert, describe incidents reported by a night porter working here. During his shift, he would remain mostly inside his office with the door firmly closed. On several occasions, it opened suddenly on its own. At first, he suspected a colleague was playing a practical joke, but when he checked the platform, there was no one there. He also described hearing tapping at the door and footsteps running along the platform when it was deserted. This would happen even on Saturday nights when the station was completely locked. Unexplained footsteps climbed regularly up the stairs from the platform to the booking office. Another porter refused to work at Elephant and Castle after a similar experience. He heard someone walking towards the office and knock twice on the door. But when he opened it, the platform was empty. These are not dramatic encounters, just footsteps where no one walks and knocking from unseen hands. Things that could be dismissed in isolation, but which, when repeated over time, become more difficult to ignore. More recently, reports have emerged of a woman seen late at night moving through train carriages here, passing silently from one to the next before disappearing. This happened so often that a driver, when asked, said simply, "We hear about her all the time." From Elephant and Castle, the Bakerloo line carries us north towards Baker Street, and it is along this stretch, travelling between stations, that a different kind of experience occurs. Passengers describe catching sight of someone seated beside them, reflected in the dark carriage window. At first glance, there is nothing remarkable in this until they turn to look and find the seat beside them empty. In some accounts, the figure appears indistinct. In others, it is clearer and described as wearing clothing from another time. The reflection remains only for a moment, then disappears. There are other stories attached to this line, even photographs said to capture something unusual, though like many such claims, they remain open to interpretation. What persists is the suggestion that sometimes the underground carries more than those who are travelling through it. For the final stop on this journey, the line turns south once more, passing beneath the river toward Kennington. This station was opened by the City and South London Railway in 1890 as part of the world's first underground electric railway. Today it forms a key junction on the Northern Line, and it has a feature few passengers ever see: the Kennington Loop. Built to allow trains to turn back without disrupting the flow of traffic, the loop carries empty trains through a single tunnel that curves tightly beneath the surrounding lines before returning them to the platform facing the opposite direction. Some people have suggested that the loop wasn't just built to avoid traffic disruption. A persistent story claims it was designed to avoid disturbing burials and that somewhere beneath Kennington lay a plague pit or older remains which the railway had to curve around. There is little evidence to support this, but the idea endures because it fits so easily with what we have already seen. And burial ground or not, here in the loop, the sense of something underlying begins to feel closer. Train crews have long reported an unusual and sometimes darkly sinister atmosphere in the loop, an uneasy sense of not being alone. After passengers have disembarked, trains drive forward into the tunnel, where they may have to wait for several minutes before being cleared to return. In that time, the train stands quiet. Or at least, it should. Sometimes drivers describe hearing movement within the carriages behind them. The sound of internal doors opening and closing one after the other, as if someone is walking through the train. Whilst passengers are not meant to travel on the loop, some people have, through design or doziness, remained on board. So these sounds are investigated, but in these instances, no one is found on the train, and yet some doors stand open. These accounts are not confined to a single incident. Similar experiences have been reported years apart by different crews under the same conditions. A presence on empty trains in a closed system. Who could this be? What causes this activity and creates this uncomfortable atmosphere? There's no clear answer. No marked history and no visible trace of what might lie beneath. But London has a way of revealing what it once tried to conceal. And maybe whatever lingers here has a past that's not yet been uncovered. As this journey draws to a close and the last trains pass through tunnels, lights flickering across tiled walls, the underground falls quiet once again. But the ground it passes through is not so peaceful. Because beneath these stations are layers of lives, thousands of them, pressed into the earth without ceremony. Plague victims buried in haste. The poor and the sick laid into unconsecrated ground, the mentally ill shut away and ignored. People absorbed into the city itself. The underground cuts through London without distinction between rich and poor, marked and unmarked, remembered and forgotten. It does not choose what to reveal, but it carries the weight of what's uncovered all the same. So, if you step onto a late train and catch sight of your reflection in a darkened window, take a second look and remember those left out of history. The people overlooked in life and not fully accounted for in death. And perhaps in the space between movement and silence, between what is seen and what is sensed, something of those lives remains, waiting to be found. If you've enjoyed this journey beneath London, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences below. Thank you for watching.